He was the occult motherfucking piece of shit what done killed some celebrities back in the day. And he looks all crazy. And his name was Chuck. Here's a fucking DFF about Charles Manson. Do it.
Die Prophet of Ride!
This is actually not about Charles Manson. This is about how Scotty is a fucking faggot.
Whoa. I didn't get that memo. I didn't do any research for the Scotty is a faggot DFF, and
That's okay.
I think
I'm an expert.
I think he was assuming that you were just going to understand that, you know.
I mean, I've got a few stories.
The truth is self-evident.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
whatever, TJ. How about DFF? TJ's a miserable, whiny fuck.
Yeah, TJ's been in a bad mood tonight, man. You can't even approach TJ. Like, he got mad. Like, Chelsea made him a nice cup of coffee, and she brings it to him, and he's like, sugar? And she's like, do you want some? And he's like, yeah. She comes and puts sugar in it. He lets it sit on the desk for like 30 minutes, and then he finally picks it up and takes a sip of it, and he's like, can't even get hot coffee around these fucking place. It's just like, what is wrong with you? What happened? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today, TJ?
Dude, around, I don't even know, like 5 or 6 o'clock, I just started having a fucking huge headache, and I went and laid down, and it felt like the second I laid in bed, Scotty was knocking on my door.
Nope.
And then I'm just like, fuck. And then since then, I've been a miserable piece of shit. And
That was 2.5 hours you just laid down.
Yeah, and it didn't fucking help at all. But this coffee is helping, so that's good.
That is a good thing.
So
I told TJ, I'm like, TJ, like, you had any weed today? And he's like, no. You had any caffeine today? He's like, no. I'm like,
well, I was trying to conserve.
you're missing your addictions.
I was trying to conserve the goddamn green, man, because, you know.
Trying to conserve, man.
Stores runneth low, man. Stores runneth goddamn low, man.
I think thou dost not drink, fucking smoke too much, TJ.
I think you're wrong.
I think you're wrong.
The caffeine stores are high, though. Come on.
Yeah, TJ.
You got no excuse there.
There's no caffeine shortage.
Early, scammed again. That's right.
Yeah, right?
Scammed again.
How do you guys like that shit?
Scammed again.
Figured we start doing it a little early. Throw you motherfuckers a curveball. All these motherfuckers that left thinking like, you're not starting for 10 more minutes.
Started now.
Too bad. Started without you, you fucking miserable cocksuckers. Man, that was a terrible intro I did.
God, dude, it was awful.
I was gonna fucking be like, it's the cultist with the mostest or some shit. But then
that's what I was expecting. But
then I fucking start opening my mouth. They're culting. Oh shit! I already fucked it up. Try to play this off like you intended this as an artistic.
I think
decision.
I remember it. You were like, the occult motherfucker what killed some celebrities back in the day.
TJ, let's do that intro again, TJ.
Yeah. Can we get a take 2 on that intro,
All right.
TJ? Because that was a pretty weak fucking intro.
DFF intro take 2.
And take 2.
The cultist with the mostest. It's Charles Manson on Deep Fat Fried.
Die Prophet of Ride!
A lot of people have asked about the who says Deep Fat Fried. It actually is Charles Manson.
Yeah.
We actually went back in time and got him to say Deep Fat Fried.
Yep, there it is.
So we finally revealed it.
It's actually Paul.
What?
Yeah.
No, dude, it's fucking it's Charles Manson.
I was there. I recorded Paul doing it.
I don't recall that.
You're full of shit, dude.
I recorded Paul doing that, actually.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually what happened, guys.
Wow.
What? That's what happened.
Your whimsical story is not accurate.
I see.
I don't know.
All right, we can't all do it. All right, come on now. All right, so fucking Charles Manson.
Yeah, Charlie Manson. Good old Charlie.
You guys might have noticed we've been doing shows a little bit differently, where we have like show leaders and shit. People kind of take the charge. This one we collaborated on.
Collaborated.
We collaborated.
I guess
collaborated.
We're collaborating on how I should
Collaborating.
We are
collaborating.
collaborating.
We're collaborating. I want
And
coffee.
we corroborated on some evidence, and here we go. And you know what, Paul took the early life of Charles Manson,
Charlie,
of old Chucky
come
there.
with me.
Scotty took the fucking murders, the famous murders and the cult years, and I took the prison life of the late prison life, because he was in prison before he did any of the murders as well.
Yeah, you got the longest term to cover, TJ.
Yeah, but I mean, he was in jail, so it wasn't like he was up to too much. Although
That's true.
He
was still up to stuff.
He was still up to some shit, for sure. But Paul, since you studied the early life of this young man, there's a picture I definitely got to show at this point.
Yeah, pull it up.
This is, and if you guys want proof that you can be born totally batshit crazy, here's a picture of Chuck Manson as a little kid.
Yep. The earliest picture that I could find of Charlie. Already got the crazy eyes, already got the smile.
It looks like this kid has already committed like a mass shooting or something.
Yeah, already plotting to have people murdered.
A lot of kids are kind of goofy, so
Yeah, I mean,
gotta give him that.
Charlie Manson's life starts out sad as soon as he's born. And most people, they get a few days where they're taken care of as a baby before their life becomes totally sad. Charlie Manson's life immediately sad. Because his birth certificate, his mom didn't bother to name him. So she squatted him out, and they're like, "What do you want to name him, ma'am?" And she's like, "Nothing." So his birth certificate name, his original birth certificate, was No Name Maddox.
No Name Matt. Why Maddox?
Maddox was his mother's last name.
Okay, so they just called him No Name.
Yes. So No Name Maddox.
He got the surname.
So
That's all I got.
she showed up, shat out a baby, and they're like, "Oh, he's a little bundle of joy. What's he called?"
Yep. And then later on, she got around to picking a name for him and named him Charles Millis after her father. And then got into one of her many ill-conceived relationships, and one of his stepfathers gave him the Manson surname.
Yeah, William Manson.
So, but yeah, No Name Maddox is how this poor kid was born. He told a lot of stories about his childhood, and it's kind of up in the air as to what's true and what isn't about them. But I like to think
Folks like this do tend to mythologize their lives to an extent.
Sure.
So,
but I like to think that there's at least a kernel of truth in some of the stories that he tells.
probably at least emotionally.
Well, before we get to his stories, though, his biological father was probably a dude named Colonel Walker Scott Henderson. Or what? Hold on, Colonel Walker Henderson Scott.
Which the title colonel, he wasn't actually a colonel or anything.
He told his mother he was. He used to use the fact that his first name was Colonel, which was actually his first given name, and use that as kind of like a grifter to get people to believe that he was in the military. And he did that to Charlie's mom. She got pregnant with him, and he was like, "Baby, I've been called away to war, but keep the home fires burning for me, sweet pea." And then he just left, and it took her a while, but she realized he wasn't coming back.
I don't think he coming back.
And that's it's probable that Charlie never met or knew his dad, although nobody knows for sure.
That's sad.
Poor Charlie.
So one of the earlier stories that he tells about himself was that his mom, when he was a toddler, took him into some cafe somewhere and was sitting there, and one of the waitresses thought he was cute.
Sitting there.
Yeah, she was sitting there having a dinner with him, and one of the waitresses thought he was cute and was like, "That's such a cute little boy," and she was like, "For a pitcher of beer, you can have him."
So here he is as a little boy.
Yep.
For reference.
Might have been around this age that this happened.
This is actually right before the beer pitcher exchange.
Yep. So, his mom says, "For a pitcher of beer, you can have him." And the waitress thought it was a funny joke, so she brought her a pitcher of beer anyway. And according to Charlie, his mother made good on her deal and just left him there. And a few days later, his uncle finally was able to track him down and bring him back home again. So,
here, you can have this defective little piece of shit.
Yep. In the first grade, which I guess would have probably been around when that picture you just had up was taken, there were stories that Charlie used to convince girls in his class to beat up boys that were picking on him. And then when the girls would rat him out and say, "Well, it was Charlie's idea, he told us to do it," he would tell the principal, no, I didn't tell them to do anything. They were doing what they wanted to do, which is kind of an eerie parallel that we'll get into when we get to Scotty's portion of the research. But, kind of already showing those tendencies of getting people to do his dirty work for him as a first grader.
Yo, Paul.
Yep.
Give you $5 to kill Scotty.
$5? You got the $5 right now? If the answer's no, then you know what my answer is, bitch.
All right. Keep talking.
Give
then.
you 100 to kill TJ.
Well, I mean, now we got a bidding war going.
You actually got the 100?
Yeah, if he's got 100 on him, then you're a dead man, TJ. I want to murk you.
Scotty, I'll give you 1,000 to kill Paul before you can kill me.
You got the 1,000?
It's in my bank account.
So you ready to murder TJ?
Because it looks like cash money right here, cash on the barrelhead, TJ.
Damn it!
That's how you make a murder deal.
Can you
go
at least
down.
murder me after the show?
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna.
Of course,
I'm
I
not
said
gonna
100 because I knew at $100 I'd take it out.
I'm not gonna screw our patrons out of the rest of the show. But
Why does
after
Scotty
the show,
have $100 anyway? Give me that $100, Scotty.
Fuck no,
That
bitch.
ain't yours.
It's mine, dude.
You fucking parasite. Give me that money.
Fucking
Give me that damn money, Scotty. All right, Paul.
I thought we were collaborating, TJ.
we're trying to collaborate.
we're collaborating on this.
Collaborate. Come on, Paul.
Another young life Charlie Manson story that
Keep carrying this show, Paul.
you can imagine, probably had a profound effect on him. He was in the kindergarten. He was 5 years old, and he, for whatever reason, cried in front of his teacher and the whole class. So something happened, and it made him cry. He's a fucking kindergartner. He goes home, and his uncle hears that he cried at school, and he made him wear his cousin's dress to school the next day to convince him to never be a sissy again.
That uncle sounds like he was up to something.
Yeah, the quote was, it didn't matter what some teacher had done to make him cry. What was important was to do something drastic that would convince Charles never to act like a sissy ever
You know
again.
what? I bet you it was effective.
So that's why I had to dress that little boy.
And
in a
look
dress.
how he turned out. Oh, shit. Wait, never mind.
Well, now liberal America wants all the boys wearing dresses.
A nation of Charles Mansons.
Yep.
It's trying to create the Charles Manson nation.
Around that same time that incident went down, his mother was sent to jail for 3 years for a botched robbery, which
A
was
comedically botched
Yeah.
robbery
Oh, God.
from the reporting of it.
Totally
So-
comedic.
the way it went down was this. She met some dude in a bar and thought he was an easy mark that have a lot of cash on him. So she calls up a cousin or something of hers and has that cousin rob him with a ketchup bottle.
Gotta rob him with a ketchup bottle, sweetie.
For some reason, a ketchup bottle filled with salt. So he poked the.
You know why, Paul?
Okay.
Just so that when you
Yeah.
told the story later in life, we could be like, "Ha, salty Paul."
Sounds like she was pretty fucking salty about it.
So yeah, he pokes him in the back with it, pretending it's a gun. He's like, "Give up your money," and he won't. So he clobbers him over the head with the ketchup bottle and rifles through his pockets and finds a whopping $27. And it took 6 hours. It took 6 hours for the police to catch them, and they were
The heist of the century.
So his mother was a master criminal.
An absolutely master
$27
criminal.
that she got to have for 6 hours.
I mean, $27 was a lot of money back in those days, though, guys.
Yeah, she
That's-
had her hands on it for a total
mean-
of 6 fucking
I mean,
hours.
that wasn't like
That was one hell of a 6-hour
that was
ride,
in what
though.
year? The 1920s or 30s or something.
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, so it's not nothing. I mean, that was more than it is now, but that's like what, like 150, maybe $600 or something.
What year did that
Or
happen?
$200 maybe.
Let's
It
see.
says it was when Charles was 5 years old. So what year was he born?
He was born. He was 80.
Well, she was released on parole in 1942 after spending 3 years. So just wind that back.
So-
It was 39.
1939.
yeah, 1939. So
So I'm gonna figure out how much money she actually.
$27.
1939.
So with
inflation.
inflation, what is that?
All right, so $1.09. So let's see. I've got the calculations here. $29 in 1939 by 2018 standards. That's a good. I mean, it's not a sum worth going to jail for, but it's about $510.
So $500 basically.
Yeah, so she basically went to prison for 3 years over a matter of $500.
That's a long time to be in a fucking jail.
Yeah.
For $500. I mean, I don't think most people would do that if they knew they were gonna have to spend 3 years in prison.
No.
Or jail. No, if it was 5,000. I could at least get that. That's where I start making sense of it. 500. I mean, I guess if someone has no money, that is a lot of money, though.
I mean, they probably didn't plan on getting caught and all that.
When his mom.
Sure.
I just hold on.
Okay,
Let's
yeah, go
just break up the dry recitation of fact for a moment here.
Sure.
Because I see some people in the chat. They want to know what now Quentin Tarantino is actually doing a biopic of Charles Manson.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
They want to know who you would cast in that.
As Manson?
Yeah. They want to know an actor to play Charles Manson. My mind immediately goes to Daniel Day-Lewis, but I know he's retiring.
Yeah. The kid, I don't know his name, but he played the preacher in There Will Be Blood. Mm-hmm. I think he would be fucking fantastic as Manson. Beard him up. I can't remember what his fucking name is for the life of me, but you know which one I'm talking about, right?
Eli.
Eli, yeah.
But I don't remember the actor's name.
I think based on looks, I would really like. I think if he was still good, I think Johnny Depp would have been a good choice. But
yeah, he's a little old now.
he's a little. Yeah, one, he's a little old, and two,
he's more than a little washed up too.
Yeah, and he's a little washed up. Trying to think of who else.
But if you could go get a time machine and go grab young Johnny Depp from like the Ed Wood era,
I think he could do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That kid is the first one that my brain went to. I think he's got the chops to pull it off.
He could.
I mean,
he played a similar role. I mean,
sure.
Eli and There Will Be Blood. You know, he had his little church flock that was following him around. So he kind of had a similar thing going, but just with a different religion and different set of beliefs. But
what about what's his name? Fuck, I'm so bad with actors' names and shit. He was in Inception, not the main dude, but
Cillian Murphy?
Not Cillian Murphy, but that maybe I don't know. He was the kid in fucking Angels in the Outfield.
Oh, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, I think he would be a good Manson.
Maybe. Huh. Here's another picture. This is Manson as a grade schooler. He's got some acne there or something like that.
Snot-nosed fucking kid at this point.
I mean, he was
another one of him. I mean, he was a pretty fucking reasonably good-looking kid and shit. I mean, he
cleaned up okay there for sure.
I mean,
one thing about him was
he doesn't look here like a crazy fucking lunatic.
No. He was extremely short though. For a guy.
Was he?
He was only 5'2".
Oh, okay.
When his mom was paroled, he recalled the hug that she gave him when she came home as the only happy memory of his childhood. So one hug from his mother.
So the hug that he got when his mom came back from prison after 3 years, he says is the happiest. The only
happy memory that he can recall from his childhood,
from his entire childhood.
Yep. That's his words once again.
Well, he said the only thing he learned from his mother, and this was a 1994 interview he did, was that basically that she would lie. That was it. Just to paraphrase, it was just she was a liar, and everyone would lie to you. So this guy had major trust issues. Like he just didn't trust anyone. He came from a home where he never had. Like, he obviously, that's the issue he had with his mom. He was never able to trust his mom to take care of him or look after him, so he always had that issue his whole life.
Now, here in this picture right here that we were just looking at a moment ago, he looks like he's probably around 13 or 14, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Now, there was an interesting event that happened around that time in his life.
Yep. He was, he was in and out of foster care. His mom tried to take care of him after she got out of jail. They lived in motels a lot, but by the time he was 11 or 12, she was looking for some way to foist Charlie off on somebody else.
Yes.
And at the same time, he started to commit crimes of his own. He escaped from pretty much every boarding school that he was ever sent to, even the state mandated ones when he was caught robbing stores and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see here he committed his first armed robbery at the age of 13.
Yep.
So shortly, I guess he was actually 12 in this picture. He looks pretty old for his age. I guess he probably didn't in person because he was 5'2". Mm-hmm. But I mean, a fucking little 5'2", 13-year-old kid. Was he 5'2" as an adult?
He was 5'2", fully grown. So
he was probably not even 5 feet
at
13 years old, and he's robbing a store. He's doing an armed robbery.
Yeah, he would do night robberies. He rented himself a room under an assumed name and would go out at night and rob stores, hold people up. The full extent of the crimes that he committed at this time are kind of not known because he only got caught for the robberies. But it wasn't long after when he was 16. By the time he was 16, he was caught at one point raping a young boy, and was sent back to prison in violation of a parole thing that he had.
Wow.
So, I mean, he just kind of went down the toilet as
So,
soon as he hit his teens.
I mean, by the time he was a teenager, he was committing armed robberies. He was committing rapes. He was committing who knows what other crimes.
Right.
Not very difficult to see why he was acting out like that. I mean, based on the stories from his childhood.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like just the fact that
he had no upbringing. I mean, he never had anyone that was like really a parental figure in his life. He just was. His dad was a con artist who was like, see, at the minute, you know, his mom became pregnant, his mom never wanted him.
his mom clearly just like despised him.
Yep.
Or
Just-
at the very least didn't give three shits about him.
sounds like she just looked at him like an imposition.
Yeah.
Like he was just a mouth that needed feeding.
Yeah. You know, like a mother who doesn't even have a name ready for her child and just says, yeah, just put no name on his fucking birth certificate.
No name. But
Yeah, this kid's going to amount to something great.
leading up to Scotty's stuff, this kind of continued. Manson spent more than half of the first 32 years of his life in some kind of an institution, and much of his childhood in foster care or, state mandated detention.
So this basically, I mean, like, it kind of at some point becomes... I guess that to some extent, all of these figures that we've looked at during our little weird cult stint have been sort of indictments of society. But I think Charles Manson more so than any of them because he was raised within the system.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know a lot about the early lives of some of these other cult figures because they were killed in bringing them to justice or killed themselves.
Right.
Charlie Manson was around for a long time and did tons of interviews, wrote books.
Loved the publicity as well.
Absolutely. So
completely.
he talked a lot about his early life. Plus, he has a really extensive criminal record that lets you kind of track him. Whereas some of these other people, like Jim Jones, didn't have a criminal record to speak of. Certainly not one.
Marshall Applewhite.
Marshall
didn't,
Applewhite, same thing.
except for failing to return a rental car.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And then who was the other one we covered?
David Koresh.
David Koresh, yeah.
I guess he kind of did, but he racked most of his rap sheet up after he became a figure. So,
Yeah, so Manson is distinctly different from all those guys, but similar in one respect, the musician thing.
that is true.
But yeah, we get to that a little later.
So to wrap up what I have here, the charges that he faced prior to becoming the cult figure that we all know were the aforementioned rape of a young boy, robbery, pimping an underage girl, and trafficking her across state lines for the purposes of prostitution and forgery. And interestingly enough, the one that nailed him the hardest was the forgery. It just goes to show you where
Where the priorities of
Yeah,
society were at that
exactly.
time.
So he'd gone on this raping, pimping spree, and he's in and out of jail on those charges. But he tried to forge a government check.
Those crimes would definitely be taken a lot more seriously today.
What he did was he actually tried to cash a treasury check for $43. And it was really strange about that was that because it was a federal crime, the penalty was much more severe. He actually did, it was sentenced to 7 years or something like that in Washington State, I believe. Or was it?
Well, it was because it was a parole violation, too. He was
Yeah.
ordered to serve 10 years
Yeah, that's right.
on a suspended sentence pending that he didn't violate his parole. And then he violated his parole by pimping a 16-year-old girl across state lines. And they were like, well, you're serving your 10 years then. So get out of here.
And not even phased by that at that point in his life, probably.
I mean, yeah.
No, I mean,
just
he-
par for the course for
He
him.
was so institutionalized. He spent so much time in that system that didn't really scare him to be.
He's like, oh, prison, cool, whatever.
Oh, dude. I mean, honestly, when it was actually about to be released, he said, don't let me out. He's one of those guys that was like, he kind of wanted to be in jail. Like
Well, when people spend a profound amount of their lives in jail, they're more comfortable there. It's like they know how that society works more than they know how ours works, and a lot of them prefer to be there. That's one of the reasons why recidivism is so high.
Someone said he was illiterate, didn't write books, dictated them. Okay,
Well, whatever.
It boils down to the same thing.
You get what I mean.
And he was not totally illiterate.
He was illiterate as a child.
I've seen letters that he's written. We're actually going to take a look at one of his letters a little later.
But being incarcerated, or being in a prison system, that's kind of the only stability he actually ever had in his life.
Yep.
Anytime he was free, he was just wandering. He was going from place to place. He was bouncing around.
Always on the wrong side of the law.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Didn't know how to function otherwise. Definitely a guy like Charlie. You can't imagine him keeping a normal job.
No.
So what's he going to do? He's going to find any illegal means to make money, and he's going to end up in jail every fucking time.
Oh yeah, that's what he did. I mean, like you said, he was involved in pimping. He was involved in theft, assault, assaulting people. Whatever it took to get him money or what he needed, he just went after it.
Yep. So that's probably right around where we hand the baton over to Scotty.
Yep, that's why I'm switching to this is him as a young adult. I don't know how old he is in this picture. He's probably looks to be in his 20s or 30s. I guess probably in his 30s after his prison sentence. Or late 20s. But here he is as a young man. This is kind of the period where he starts to do the crimes that he's notorious for. Because obviously, if this was just some petty criminal that, did some armed robberies and some pimping and some raping, we probably wouldn't remember his name to this point in history. This is when he started accomplishing his truly grandiose and unbelievable crimes.
Right, so basically, the prison sentence we're talking about, so March 21st, 1967, he basically is released, he gets permission to move to San Francisco, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna set up here, and at the time, San Francisco was kind of this cultural hub. It was, basically, it's called the Summer of Love.
Right, so it's the hippie movement, Haight-Ashbury.
Yeah, it's basically, it's the prime time of the hippie movement. It's attracting people all over the U.S. want to come to this location. Manson's not even that far away from that, so he's like, obviously he's also attracted to that. He's attracted to all these people that want to change the world. They want to do a lot of different things. They want to, it's kind of, a time of really rejecting the past, and that obviously has a great appeal to someone like him who doesn't really want to have that identity that from where he came from. He wants to create this new identity. A
lot of psychoactive drugs too, which would play a role. Yeah. I mean, LSD, weed is everywhere at this point.
He basically mostly lived by begging at that time period in his life. He kind of really took that time to establish himself as kind of a central figure in that community. And like the role he kind of tried to play with people is like kind of this guru. Like he would, something that is obviously attributed to him is in prison is he learned how to size people up. I mean, he obviously lived on the street, so he had a lot of street smarts. But he would he would meet people and he would try to size up and see what kind of person they are, like what really made them tick, what would play to them as a person, like how would I get in with you? Like maybe if you're insecure about this or you're insecure about your home life, like he would play that. He'd be the sympathetic shoulder at that moment to you.
So he was.
And this was primarily towards women too. Like he was seeking sexual relationships.
The majority of his followers were women.
Oh yeah, by and large.
I mean, he had some men there for muscle, but primarily what he wanted was breeding stock for his little harem. We see that with a lot of these cult guys. Not Applewhite, but Jim Jones and David Koresh. We saw that with them as well.
Yep.
It's hard not to see the patterns between these people.
And one of the things was they talk about the philosophy that Manson espoused, and it said it was really like when he actually was in prison, he listed himself as a Scientologist. So like he borrowed things that he had seen from other people. Like he borrowed from Scientology, he borrowed from Christianity, like Revelations. He borrowed heavily from these other philosophies that he kind of absorbed in prison. Like he encountered all these different people, and that kind of really formulated later on what we would see with the Manson family and kind of like the cult figure. Like he really modeled that after these different cults he had kind of been interested in, and obviously he had that cult of personality thing too, where he always wanted to be the central figure of everything. That's why like he was a guru. That's why he had that sort of mentality that he would approach people with. He'd find people who were broken, who needed some figure, and he wanted to replace that in their lives. He wanted to replace, like, you're broken like this. Well, I'm the solution.
Right.
Obviously, he did a lot of thinking during his long prison stint, because it's kind of remarkable to enter prison just a petty criminal and to leave with these sorts of ambitions of controlling people on this level.
Well, and the ability to carry it out too.
I mean, I mean, very few people possess the natural charisma to actually lure people and control people to anywhere near the extent that Charles Manson did.
What I have here is Manson appeared to have borrowed philosophically from the Process Church of the Final Judgment, whose members believed that Satan would become reconciled with Christ, and that would come together at the end of the world to judge humanity, expounding a philosophy that included some Scientology he had studied in prison.
Yeah.
So soon the first group. So basically, he had, like I said, he combined these two, like an end time kind of.
So there was some weird cult that said that Jesus and Satan were going to get together and be like, you know what, we let's be friends, and then they're going to judge the world together. So he took from that, and he took from Scientology, which we've already looked at on this show.
And this is kind of the beginning of the Manson family, as they were so called. So then let me see the next part. Okay. Some of his teachings, that we're getting to that. Manson taught his followers that they were a reincarnation of the original Christians and that Romans were the establishment. He strongly implied that he was Christ, which he would do. Actually, when they would go to his camp.
Has there been one of these guys yet that hasn't basically claimed to be Christ?
No.
Every single one of them loves that Christ iconography.
One thing that runs true through the middle of all of them. They all, I mean, but it's a power play, right? It's the ultimate power play.
Yeah, basically say, I'm God here on earth.
Yes.
Here I am.
And they moved to, one of the central places they lived was this ranch. What the fuck? It begins with an S. It's like you know what I'm talking about? The ranch.
Let's see. San Francisco followers.
I'm trying to remember the name of the ranch. It was actually
I wouldn't get too hung up on it.
Well, it was basically an old West movie set that it was in the like northwestern course or northern Los Angeles. Well, they filmed a lot of big TV shows and Western shows.
Like what?
I think like Bonanza and shit like that.
Oh, cool. So Bonanza and Helter
It kind of been abandoned at that point. It was just a ranch at that point.
That's kind of neat, though.
And the followers and like his followers and him would gather there and like they would do LSD and like they always said that he would always give them the LSD. But he himself actually was very rarely seen taking it, or he would take it, but it would be a smaller dose because he always wanted to be in control.
So basically, he made his followers trip, so that he could. But he stayed sober so that he could plot. He could control their trip and basically.
Well, and how suggestive are you when you're fucking out of your mind on LSD too?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he obviously used it to weaken their mental resolve so that he could. You know, do whatever he needed to do.
Well, he basically would put on a production.
He could mold people.
He would go all Passion of the Christ on their ass, and he would, reenact Jesus being crucified. Of course, what role did he play?
Let me guess.
So here is
not Pontius Pilate.
Here's like a little snapshot of the core of the Manson family. You see mostly women there. There's said to be many more members, but these are the main killers and accomplices.
Wow.
So these are the core of his fucking family.
That dude on the bottom kind of looks like a Vulcan.
Yes, he does. If you slapped a couple of Spock ears on him, you could definitely pass him as a fucking Spock cosplayer.
Yep.
But that's the core of the family right there. But it's said to be many more than that. Who knows exactly how many?
An interesting thing was what he would do. So Charles Manson would meet women, and a lot of these women in the cult you just showed. He would meet them. He would he would try to instantly have a connection with them. Like one of the women, I think was like Periwinkle. He told her like, hey, I'm ugly too, and no one's ever told you that you're beautiful.
I think you're talking about Patricia Krenwinkel, right?
Krenwinkel?
That's what I see.
Okay, then that's the name, Krenwinkel. But he basically like because she had he kind of read on her that she was kind of more homely in appearance, and she didn't really have like a lot of people compliment her, and he was like, we're both ugly, can be ugly together, you're beautiful. And she recounts just like crying, and they had sex. So basically he read that on her like she's insecure about her appearance. Oh, you're beautiful. I'm the one to tell you.
She was probably just a butterface, and he noticed, and he's like, yep. Bitch, I think you beautiful. And then she hopped on his cock, and he's like, yeah.
Turn around.
And another one, I think it was called Squeaky. He met her on a bus bench, crying, and just like and people.
So obviously attracted to vulnerability.
Oh, dude, he probably had a rush when he saw that. He was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be fucking simple."
So he would send these girls out. Like that was like his big lure. Like he would send these girls out and try to hope they would meet famous musicians because he had this obsession with becoming a rock star. Like he's like, I'm gonna meet someone in this industry. and I'm gonna get big, and I'm gonna become
He's
famous.
basically like wandering around San Francisco and Los Angeles like a fucking 20th century Diogenes. Like, I'm this fucking, I look like this homeless fuck, but I'm actually this great guru and philosopher. And I guess also I'm trying to be this great musician. I have some of his music here as well. It's kind of interesting to listen to. You can hear this is like he's just kind of like making songs as he goes and shit. It's kind of like almost like those videos I used to do on the YouTube my YouTube channel.
Oh,
where,
yeah.
Like Cody would just lay down some riffs and I just make some shit up
Before he was killed by a velociraptor.
Yeah, well, he had hot irons shoved up his ass. It's a long story. I don't want to get into it. But
Hi, Charlie, baby.
so let's just take a little listen here.
Let's see. Whatever you feel like, man. Yeah.
That's Charles right there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, can't you
He
just
keeps
turn
talking about how
around
he
and let it
feels
go?
nervous,
Okay,
dude.
we're gonna let it go, right?
And he does these weird nervous laughs too.
You should get a job making people nervous. What was we at? Restless people from the sick city burnt their homes down.
Hold on, he's gonna
You wanted something happy.
flub it,
I'm
dude.
trying to think of something happy, man. No. Don't even think, man.
Do what comes in your head, Chuck. All right. I've listened to this whole recording today. Between almost every song, he's talking about how nervous he is, and he's just constantly down on himself throughout. Like, I don't know, you hear this story of him, and you hear this, like, projection of confidence and stuff.
But when he's under the spotlight.
But when you listen to this recording, like, you just see a whole lot of vulnerability. That nervous laugh is a constant thing. Him talking about feeling nervous. Him being like, I don't know what's wrong with me today. Because he keeps not liking the way he's singing the songs and stuff. And I don't know if that's just put upon because I don't know if that's a feigned vulnerability to draw people in. Or if he just genuinely felt vulnerable about the stuff he was creating. But it's definitely compelling stuff. I actually really enjoy Charles Manson's music. It's not, obviously, the production values are not great and the song structures are pretty basic, but his crazy soul definitely does come across in the music that he puts forward. Obviously, we're not going to sit here and listen to this album, but
it's distinct.
I thought it was interesting to listen to him at that early time in his life because there's not like recordings of him giving speeches to his followers or anything.
Can you find some of him actually singing some stuff?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
just skip ahead a little bit or some shit.
He'll start singing here in a minute.
All right. All right.
I mean, I don't think we can. So here we go.
What was we talking about? Sick City. Restless people from a sick city burnt their homes down to make the sky look pretty. What can I do? I'm just a person. This is the line that we always seem to hear. You just sit. Things get worse and watch TV and drink your beer. Walking all alone, not going anywhere. Walking all alone, nobody seems to care. Restless as the wind, this town is killing me. Gotta put an end to this restless misery.
Yeah.
I mean, I like
had some
his
talent.
shit. I mean, I think that he had enough talent to attract professional musicians to his defense. I think Scotty's in a moment going to get into how one of the Beach Boys was actually
put an end to my restless misery.
Oh yeah, he's talking about burning down the city and all. I mean, like a lot of the darkness within him can be found in these early songs that he did with his band and shit.
I mean, I think it's just evocative of his whole life. I mean, he was just a restless sort of character that never really found any contentment in life. And
he was just one of those restless people that can never seem to be satisfied with living.
So, like we are talking about, he actually used these women as a lure. Like, he would offer up the women in the cult or his group, to gain favor with other people.
Especially musicians.
A little bit of his pimping experience coming back, I guess, with that.
Two of his followers are hitchhiking, and they get picked up by a beach boy, which his name is Dennis Wilson. And, which interestingly enough, this story is pretty crazy. So basically, the two women are hitchhiking are Patricia Kernwinkle and Ella Jo Bailey, and he brought them to a specific Palisades house for a few hours. Returning home in the early hours following the morning from a night recording session, Wilson was greeted in the driveway of his own residence by Manson, who emerged from the house. Uncomfortable, Wilson asked the stranger whether he intended to hurt him. Assuring him he had no such intent, Manson began kissing Wilson's feet.
What?
Inside the house, Wilson discovered 12 strangers, mostly women. So,
Yeah, okay.
He comes home, and obviously Dennis Wilson has this kind of clean-cut beach boy thing. He has that going, but at the same time, he was a big
Surfing USA.
He's a big-time partier and drug user. He comes home.
Sure, yeah.
Manson, that's kind of like, this is weird, but then there's a bunch of women in his house. He's like, well, okay, well, maybe it's not so bad after all.
So basically, all right, I think this speaks, I don't know if this speaks poorly of, what's his name, Dennis Wilson or not. I can kind of see, you go back to your house and there's this fucking crazy, scraggly dude.
You have Charles Manson.
And you're just like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? Are you here to kill me or hurt me? And he's like, no, man, no. And he's like, I'm kissing your feet, man. Come inside, man. And there's all this pussy in there. And you're just kind of like, all right, fuck it.
Crazy shit happens to rock stars, TJ.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. So, he's just rolling with it.
So over the next few months, the number of people living there doubles.
Brilliant greeting by Charles, really, is what I'm saying.
So, the Manson family lived with Dennis Wilson for a long time?
And the other Beach Boys actually came over there and met Manson. There's interviews with them where they had orgies going and stuff, and the kind of other guys are kind of just like, I'm not too interested in that, and I'm gonna go take a shower. And the guy said he gets in the shower, and Charles Manson, I don't know the Beach Boys, I don't know which member it was, and he comes in and he looks at him and says, you can't leave the group.
Whoa.
Just wide-eyed, you just can't leave the group. But living there cost Dennis Wilson $100,000. So this whole group is living there, which includes a large medical bill for treatment of their gonorrhea. I'm not making this up. $21,000 for accidental destruction of his uninsured car, which they borrowed. And obviously Wilson would hang out with Manson and sing and talk. And, Manson was obviously trying to build a rapport up with him so he could obviously break into the music industry. Which, oddly enough, they did. The Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson did bring a song that Manson was instrumental in. It's something about love. It's one of their songs they put out. And Dennis Wilson actually took
Wilson.
credit.
Okay, here's what I said. Wilson paid for studio time to record songs written and performed by Manson. Wilson introduced Manson entertainment business acquaintances. Those included Greg Jacobson, Terry Melcher, and Ruby Altobelli.
Yeah.
The last of whom owned a house he would soon rent to actress Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski.
Yep.
Who was impressed by the whole Charlie Manson package of artist, lifestyle, philosopher, also paid to record Manson material. So there was a lot of people who were actually big in the industry that were at least somewhat impressed with Manson. Dennis fucking Wilson enough to actually let this guy live in his house. I think it probably helped that there were 12 women that
mostly women.
Yeah, 12 mostly women who were probably sexually available to him at any time.
Oh, of course, completely sexually available. That was part of Charles Manson's appeal with these guys was that, oh, you want some women? Yeah, here you go.
I got women. Don't you worry. Don't you fucking
That's
worry.
That's going to be made available to you. I think actually in parallel too. We're about to get into Helter Skelter and the Beatles thing, but I pulled this was because he believed that the Beatles' White Album was actually communicating with him, but this is a statement he actually made. In December of 1968, Manson and Watson, which is Tex Watson, which is a member of the cult, visited Topanga Canyon acquaintance who played them the Beatles' White Album that had been recently released. Manson became obsessed with the group. At McNeil Prison, he had told fellow inmates, including Alvin Karpis, which is the guy that actually taught Charles Manson how to play guitar, that he could surpass the group in fame. And to the family, he spoke of the group as the soul and part of the whole of the infinite.
Okay, well, I know a lot of Beatles fans, so maybe he was just one of those.
Charles Manson's full. Is this a full quote from him here in this document?
Yeah, this is basically talking about Helter Skelter.
Okay. It says,
go ahead.
Like Helter Skelter is a nightclub. Helter Skelter means confusion, literally. It doesn't mean any war with anyone. It doesn't mean that those people are going to kill other people. It only means what it means. Helter skelter is confusion. Confusion is coming down fast. If you don't see the confusion coming down fast, you can call it what you wish. It's not my conspiracy. It's not my music. I hear what it relates. It says rise. It says kill. Why blame it on me? I didn't write the music. I am not the person who projected it into your social consciousness. And that was what Charles Manson said later in 1970.
And Helter Skelter is actually a Beatles song.
Yeah.
But he took this
Pretty cool song.
As the Beatles communicating about an upcoming apocalyptic race war
Oh, yeah.
between whites and blacks.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the lyrics of Helter Skelter, it pretty much it lets you know that it's about a race war between the whites and the blacks. Yeah.
And
You can't hear the subtext, TJ? Are you
yeah.
telling me you can't hear what they
No,
meant?
I do. I definitely hear it.
Okay.
and the eventual outcome of the race war is to be Manson and his followers.
Well, this is actually getting into Manson's core beliefs right now.
Yeah.
This is like this was the message he really started preaching to him.
Well, what ended up happening was him and his followers were going to go to Death Valley, the Baker Ranch or something, or Barker Ranch. They were going to go into this bottomless pit, and they were going to hide out. And the blacks, because white women had been made available to black men, were going to go crazy. You're going to kill all the whites except them. So also the blacks were going to win the race war, kill all the whites, except for Manson and his group of followers. They're going to emerge after the blacks had won the race war and just take over.
Because they thought the blacks were going to be too stupid to run society.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
They're going to be too incompetent to run.
So the blacks are going to be like, oh, man, we killed Whitey, and now we don't know what to do, man. And then Charlie Manson was going to come up out of the hole and be like, Whitey is here.
Whitey is here. The white.
Fear not, Negroes.
The-
I'm here to lead you to whiteness.
here, actually, I have something about Charles Manson talking about black people, his views,
Not that I hate you first. You're the first line.
on a low volume.
I hate all white people. White people are rotten, and black people are just like them. Because you've made them just exactly like you. They walk like you, they talk like you, everything they do is like you. They want to be you so much. They love your woman more than you do. They know your mind better than you. They wear your clothes. They've even learned to wear your shoes. You take them out of the jungle, and you want to make them into a man. Why couldn't it be left to be God? Why do you want to make them to a man? In the jungle, they were God. Africans are smart, aren't they? See, over here, everybody thinks them old black people are just dumb old colored folks. But they're not dumb old colored folks. They're very smart. They're very aware. And their capacity for fear is 3 times what yours is.
Wow.
So
He would have fit right in on some internet blood sports with that shit, dude.
yeah, he would.
Andy Worski, man, you missed a chance to get Manson on before he passed.
Too bad.
So
Such a shame.
Well, this is kind of interesting too. His first known use of the term Helter Skelter was a campfire gathering of the family on New Year's Eve in 1968 at their base. It was Myers Ranch near Death Valley. By February 1969, Helter Skelter developed into a scenario in which Manson and the family would create an album which they believed would trigger the conflict, inspire America's white youth to join the family.
So wait a minute. So not only was this race war going to happen, but Charles Manson was going to record the album
That was gonna start it.
going to promulgate the event.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and so this was inspire the white youth to join the family. He believed that the black men deprived of white women now because of this would commit violent crimes and frustration, resulting in murderous rampages and swiftly escalating conflict between races.
All right. So wait a minute. Let's just get this plan straight.
Yep.
Phase 1 of the plan: record this album.
Record this album.
Phase 2: all the white women join the Manson family.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 3: the white bitch crazed black men, deprived of their white bitches,
Can't get it no more. Manson's got them all.
are fucking just enraged and start rampaging fucking like monkeys through the streets,
They
causing a race war,
Yep.
killing all of the fucking human, of all the fucking white humans and shit, to the point where now society is collapsing because the blacks can't run it. And then Charles comes back with all the white women to placate the black man, and then crowns himself God Emperor of America.
Basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's it.
Cool plan.
I mean, it seems like it would work.
Reasonably, yeah. I think it's kind of
The
feasible.
race war is coming.
That album's gonna have to be kick-ass, though, if every chick, like every white chick in America is gonna flock to you. It's gonna have to be a badass fucking album.
The best album, dude.
It would have been great if he'd actually recorded it, but it never got recorded, unfortunately.
So now we get to the Manson murder timeline. And there's a lot of events. So in July 1969, Gary Hinman is killed by Manson follower
Bobby Beausoleil or something like that.
Beausoleil,
Something.
accompanied by Manson family members Mary Berner and Susan Atkins. The murder is committed at the behest of Manson. So that's kind of where this all kicks off.
So the first one is this Gary Hinman.
Which is this guy on a ranch, I believe, is who they're talking about.
It was probably just Manson testing if he could order people to kill for him and if they would actually do it.
Yeah.
Poor bastard. He was just like some poor fuck.
The next one is the one everyone has heard of, and that's August 8th, 1969, where Manson orders Tex Watson and some of his other followers. Trying to remember which ones they were. Let me see here. For some reason, I don't have a list here. But he orders some of the family to go and kill.
So he orders 5 members of the family to go kill some people at the Benedict Canyon home of Roman Polanski.
Which at the time, he was kind of aware. Like, I think he thought someone involved in the music industry was going to be there. So that was kind of what it was.
Well, yeah, remember that producer that kind of...
Melcher.
Yeah, the Melcher guy. It used to belong to him. He rented it to Polanski and Sharon Tate. So Manson was trying to kill that guy and get revenge for I guess, not getting picked up to a major record label like he wanted.
Also, here it was. It was committed by Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Kernwinkle, and Linda Casbian accompanies them as a lookout. So there's 5. What follows is a very brutal crime. Actually, I learned studying in this because I knew this had happened. I mean, Sharon Tate, obviously very famous. One was what was her name? Let's see. Abigail Folger, which if you've heard of Folger.
Heir to the Folger.
Yeah.
Coffee fortune.
There's a celebrity hairstylist, Jay Sebring. There's some fucking Polish guy like Wojciech Frykowski.
Wojciech Frykowski or something like that. He's a writer.
And
so this is a lot of people involved in the arts and the movie industry and stuff.
And this is just a total wrong place, wrong time thing for them.
Yeah, none of these people were the intended targets. Manson sent his followers to go kill this music producer that fucked his career.
And it just happened to be rented to Roman Polanski, and everybody that was there got killed.
Yeah, Polanski wasn't there, but his wife was there, and a bunch of his friends, or her friends probably, were there, and they just got butchered.
It stemmed from Melcher basically saying, I don't have a place for you. I don't know what to do with your music. I don't know what to do with you. And I think that rejection was ultimately just too much, for him to handle. And I actually read a description of the killings. Tate and the victims to which he was tied, Jay Sebring, have been repeatedly slashed. Bullets filled the ceilings and blood covered the floors. Tate was found naked, and one of Miss Tate's breasts had been cut off, apparently as a result of indiscriminate slashing. She was 9 months pregnant, and there was an X cut on her stomach.
So they were slashed. I mean, like, she's
tied up,
visibly pregnant with a huge baby bump.
Yep.
They slash at her so fucking brutally that they inadvertently chop one of her breasts completely off. They slash an X into her pregnant stomach.
I believe it was Abigail Folgers that ran out of the house, and she was stabbed in the back and murdered there.
Sounds like she was fucking lucky.
Yeah, she got off light.
She got off light compared to some of the shit they did to the other people there. I mean, like, this was a beyond brutal.
Well, the first one was killed
scene.
was this guy Stephen Parent, who was a friend of the family gardener. He was shot in the head by Tex Watson.
Okay, so he was the luckiest of them all.
Yeah, he just got the quick boom, 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 you're dead.
You're dead.
The other ones, I mean, obviously were tortured and murdered.
Wow.
At the behest of Manson.
And not even because they had done something to Manson or the Manson family, but just because they happened to be
at the house.
At the house where the producer that, had told Manson, no, I'm not going to fucking sign you to a label, lived.
Yeah. That was it. I mean, so those crimes happened, and then the next one on August 9th and 10th, we have...
So the next day.
Yeah, so next day, So Manson is not happy with how the murders went down. He's basically, I'm not happy with what the group. He said it was sloppy. I'm gonna show you how it's done.
So he felt that the murder that they did was sloppy. That was his criticism.
Not that they killed the wrong people, but that they did it sloppily.
You were messy. Way too messy. Chopping off tits.
So they go in search of some more victims. After several hours, the group comes upon the house of supermarket executive Leno LeBlanc and his wife Rosemary. The couple are brutally murdered by Watson, Atkins, Kernwinkle, and Van Houten. So they go to the supermarket executive's house. Manson goes in the house, ties the people up, and it's like, okay, go in there. You guys have to do something. You have to go and kill these people.
He targeted some pretty rich, powerful, sometimes even famous people.
So most of that murder, my understanding, what I heard and what I read, was this Tex Watson guy was mainly responsible. But he also told, when Manson had told him, you have to obey everything he says, and you have to get your hands dirty. So everyone there had to do something. Like, even if they weren't involved necessarily in the first act of killing or the starting act, they had to stab or kill or hurt. That was required for everyone there. So they all engaged in that kind of activity.
Except for Manson.
Well, except for Manson, yeah. Well, he entered the house, but he actually didn't.
He was just directing it like a fucking movie.
He tied them up and was like, okay, now you need to go do it.
He was just ordering the girls in first grade to go beat up the boys that were messing with him.
Yeah, because then it's not his fault. These other people made their choices.
Yeah.
They chose to listen to what I said.
So, actually, as these two crimes occurred, they actually believed the second killing of Leno, what's his name here? He's not as famous, so it's hard to remember his name in comparison.
Leslie Van Houten?
No. That's one of his followers.
That's one of the followers. The victims were Leno, LaBianca, and his wife.
In
Rosemary.
that murder, they actually thought that was a copycat killing. The police actually initially did not think that those were related.
Why not? I mean, they happened literally the next night.
They thought,
is that enough time for a copycat to be like, that sounds fun, I'm going to do it too?
Strangely enough, I think so.
Okay.
They actually believed that was a working theory for a while. So then we jump ahead to October. This is October 1969. Manson and his followers are arrested at another remote location called Barker Ranch, what I was talking about before, on suspicion of auto theft. So for some reason, they're released.
Okay.
So they catch them doing some illegal activity, but they're released. So then we jump to November 6, 1969, and this is where we start getting a break in the case because, like I said, these murders happened. They weren't solved. No one really knew what happened. I mean, everyone there was dead.
Right.
Dead men tell no tales kind of thing. So in November 1969, the Manson family member Susan Atkins, already charged with the murder of Gary Hinman, which we got to initially, tells inmate Virginia Castro that she killed Sharon Tate because, and this is her quote, because we wanted to do a crime that would shock the world and that the world would have to stand up and take notice. So she's an idiot. She blabs. So Susan Atkins goes, guess what I did? I actually committed this murder to her cellmate.
I mean, so many of these cases are broken in jail, too. People get in there, they get bored, they start telling stories, and then all of a sudden...
They just can't help but confess to their cellmate.
Yeah. Other inmates think, like, man, maybe I can get a suspended sentence if I fucking break this case. They go tell on them.
And usually they can.
Yeah.
Then only a few days later, November 12, 1969, the L.A. Sheriff Detectives Al Springer, motorcycle gang member who had become had some association with Manson, Springer tells him that Manson told him about killing people days after the Tate murders. So Manson was talking to people about it.
So not only was Susan Atkins talking in jail, but Manson's going around blabbing to people, bragging about what he's done as well.
So by November 18th, 1969, the Deputy District Attorney Vincent T. Bugliosi is assigned the case. That's not really too relevant. Watson is apprehended in Texas on November 30th, 1969, which is the primary aggressor and actually the actual physical aspects of killing these people. And by December 6th, Manson, Watson, Atkins, Kernwinkle, and Casbian are indicted for the murders of Sharon Tate and her friends. The grand jury also indicts the five plus Van Houten for the LaBianca murders.
LaBianca, yeah.
LaBianca, yeah.
So it didn't take them long once the blabbing started to
once they started yammering.
They couldn't really hold it together. I mean, within, 3 months, 4 months of these murders having occurred, they basically ratted themselves out.
Now, wasn't it revealed in the investigation that they had plots to kill other people as well?
Oh, yeah.
Including the president, right? Gerald Ford?
Oh, Gerald Ford. Oh, God, we didn't even get into that.
Yeah, I mean they were plotting to.
We'll actually get into that during my section
Sure.
because
okay.
that's when it was actually attempted. But yeah, like the Manson trial, that was like the OJ trial of the time. Though.
Oh yeah, dude.
This was like one of the first trials that was just like round the clock media coverage. The entire country was enthralled. Manson was one of the first people that was kind of tried by the media before he was tried by the courts.
A big thing that they actually
Maybe Lizzie Borden before him.
They tried to have his a mistrial declared because Richard Nixon came on TV and said that Manson was guilty.
Right. Which probably, I mean, honestly, I don't know if that should lead to a mistrial, but that's pretty. The president should not be doing that.
Nobody
whatever.
should be doing that.
But he did, and we know how Nixon's tenure as president turned out. So, surprise, surprise, they go on trial June 16th, 1970.
Manson's got the X carved in his forehead by then.
Well, no. Well, Caspian, who you remember who was the lookout, is given immunity in exchange for testimony against Manson and the others. So they get someone to roll. They say, look, you're going to spend life in prison or you're going to fucking rat out your friends. And surprise, surprise.
He makes the right choice. Or she makes the right choice.
The trial goes on. There's a lot of it.
You want to see a little clip from the trial where Manson tried to stab the judge?
That's a good one.
He also, at one point during the trial, punched his own lawyer in the face.
Cool.
Yeah. But this is Manson trying to stab the judge.
You may not. I'm going to fight for my life one way or another. You might as well let me do it with words.
If you don't stop, I'll have to have you removed.
If you don't stop, I'll have you removed. I've got a little system.
Call the next witness.
You think I'm kidding?
I think this is a dramatization, but this did actually happen.
Can you imagine if, like, at the OJ trial, OJ had charged Lancito at the bench or some shit?
God.
Dude, that'd have been the most awesome shit ever.
And why didn't they have TV cameras in this room? Wow.
I think there is actual footage of Manson charging it. I don't know why the first result was some TV movie.
But we know.
But
Also,
whatever, he did charge the judge.
And during the trial, he cut an X on his forehead that he later famously made the swastika. So the trial goes on for several months. Of course, they're all found guilty. They're sentenced to death. But here's actually an interesting turn of events. That in 1972, California abolished the death penalty.
And then they unabolished it later, too.
They did. But during that time, all death sentences were commuted to life in prison, which Charles Manson was fine with. Because you have to remember, this guy had spent most of his life in prison or juvenile hall or boarding schools. So he was actually fine with that outcome. Like, death to him was probably actually, in this case, scarier. But
yeah, he didn't want to die. I mean, he actually told people that if he was sentenced to death, there was going to be blood in the streets and people were going to be killed and all this horrible stuff was going to happen. Like it was going to set up some domino chain reaction of chaos in society.
No. I mean, clearly it wasn't. I mean, and they said when he was sentenced to die that he was trembling. He was obviously afraid to die. I mean, I can't really fault him for that. But, the guy that said, oh, when you die, you're going to, because they had said that he had said about the murders, well, we're probably doing them a favor. He always said, oh, well, death is just a beginning. Death, immortality, and I'm immortal. And, he didn't really have with his followers, he made death seem like it was not a big deal. But then when he was confronted with his own mortality, his opinion kind of changed, and he asked his followers to lie. And the big thing about Charles Manson was he's about, I'm a figure of truth. But then as the trial went on, it wasn't looking as good for him. It was like, well, you need to lie for me. You need to tell them whatever. Because one thing I when I was reading about the trial was they would have meetings with these girls every day and say, look, this is the kind of defense, this is what you need to say, this is how you're going to act today, you're going to do these symbols, you're going to act this way, you're going to say these things. I mean, he was totally in control of what they did. The entire time during this trial. It wasn't like they were going out there and like, okay, just do whatever you want. I mean, he was still playing the part of the cult leader throughout the entire
It's kind of amazing
trial.
that they allowed him that level of access to everybody.
Well, until they're convicted, they still have a right to a defense.
Right. But I mean, it's kind of strange that they allowed Charles to speak so communicate. I guess it's because they tried them all at the same time, though.
Yeah, they're being tried together.
Today Charles probably would have been tried separately from his followers.
They all probably would.
Yeah, probably so. But it was 1970. Things were done differently in that time.
So Manson's career doesn't really end necessarily. I mean, career. I don't know if dude. When I was studying for the prison portion of this, I went to a site that was like a biography site, and it said Charles Manson, and under occupation it said murderer. Like it was his fucking job.
I mean,
cult leader.
Yeah.
Cult of personality. You know.
One thing is that probably will not shock you guys is that Charles Manson was not a model prisoner.
Wow.
No.
You go figure. So over the course of his prison stint from the point of his conviction for the Tate LaBianca murders up until his death, just I think last year, He incurred over 100 rules violations. Okay? Here's some of the things that he had violations for. Assault.
Shocking.
Which, I don't think that's shocking to anybody. I'm kind of shocked that he personally assaulted people, because usually he finds someone else to do that kind of thing. Repeated weapons possessions, multiple times found with a weapon on his person or in his cell. Threatening the staff. Possessing a cell phone. He made calls all around. They couldn't figure out if he was actually using the phone for criminal enterprises or what he was using it for. But at some point they did find a cell phone in his possession. Spitting in guards' faces on more than one occasion. Liked to spit on the guards. He threw hot coffee at prison staffers, apparently, at one point. Here's one I really wish I could have found more on. I couldn't find anything more about this, but apparently at one point he tried to cause a flood.
A flood?
Yeah, I don't know what he did. I don't know if he
probably backed up.
Tried to back up some pipes and stuff and flood the inside of a room, or what the hell happened.
My cousins that are prison guards, COs, they talk about that. People will flood the tier, like they plug up their sink or their toilet with toilet paper or whatever they've got. It's just a way to piss off the guards, basically, and cause somebody to do a bunch of work.
So basically, that was Manson just saying "fuck you" to the guards, fuck you to the people who have imprisoned him.
What does he have to lose? At that
he
point?
attempted to set his mattress on fire. I guess he was caught before he succeeded in that. He got caught trafficking drugs, a crime that actually I think got him transferred to a different prison. That's pretty much it in terms of his rap sheet in prison, but definitely not a model prisoner.
I mean, I don't think he was a model of anything. Maybe a model criminal. I mean, you just see the same pattern with him over and over again. He just commits petty little crimes, besides the murders, really. And when he went to jail, in prison, it was the same way. He just did little petty things, whatever however he wanted to break the rules, he did. I mean, he wasn't the kind of guy that ever gave a shit about rules or authority. He was just, I want to break these rules. I mean, he constantly described himself as an outlaw.
I mean, he's in prison because he's not following the rules. What makes people think he's going to follow him in prison?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't follow.
Well, that was one of the things is when we're going to talk a little bit more about his paroles later, but when he stopped showing up for his paroles, I think the last parole hearing they ever had for him, he didn't show up to, but they basically just said, like, when they looked at his prison record, they said, like, he's continued to be a problem behind bars. He shows zero remorse for his crimes. He has a stunning lack of concern for human life in general, and we're not going to even bother looking at his parole again for another 15 years, at which point he would have been like 90-something years old.
He never, and he knew this, he never would have been released. It wouldn't have mattered. He could have been the most remorseful human being in the world.
Oh, yeah.
His
Doesn't
ass
matter.
was never
I mean,
leaving.
maybe, dude. Maybe if he had
If he'd
decided
been a model
to,
prisoner for years and years, maybe, or
if he
something.
towed the line and,
I
mean,
and
maybe
expressed
They
remorse
were
and shit as an
never
old man.
I don't think they ever would have released Charles Manson.
I mean, would he be? I mean, like if he had done a very different sort of prison stint, maybe, because a lot of the Charles Manson stuff is because of his crazy outbursts and the interviews people have seen with him from prison and stuff.
But they never even released. I mean, I don't think even any of his other followers have been released. Maybe one. I mean, but for the most part, all his other.
One of them was released not too long ago, actually.
Yeah, after doing like 40 years in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
But they actually committed the murders. He actually didn't physically commit the murders.
Yeah,
himself.
but would the murders have happened without Charles Manson's direction?
Absolutely not.
You know, so I mean, yeah, he was charged with conspiracy. You know, because he conspired to commit the crimes. He didn't necessarily carry them out.
So one thing that happened in September of 1975 is Lynette Squeaky
Squeaky. We talked about her. Yeah.
Squeaky.
That's the one he met on the bus station crying.
Yeah.
A cult member of his family who was still free because I guess she wasn't involved in the murders. She actually attempted to assassinate then President of the United States Gerald Ford in Sacramento, California. She wanted to make a statement to people who refuse to halt environmental pollution. So one of the things we really didn't talk about Charles Manson's message is that he did use a lot of environmentalist rhetoric as well.
It was popular at the time.
Yeah, hippies and
Definitely
such.
popular among the tree hugging hippie.
Well, the reason he
faggots.
talked about the race war is because blacks were rioting in cities in 1968.
So he was ripping his rhetoric from the headlines.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that she did not succeed in her assassination attempt. She came so close because even though little Squeaky was just an arm's length away from Gerald Ford, and she pointed an M1911. I've never even heard of that gun.
Just a handgun, right?
Just a pistol.
Yep.
She pointed at him, point blank fucking range, pulls the trigger. The gun fails.
Wow.
I guess it's good that gun wasn't fucking very
No one was
reliable.
injured. In fact, after the assassination attempt, Ford continued to have his meeting with the governor of California, who was Jerry Brown at the time, and oddly, I think, is again.
Is again.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, again. The current governor as well.
For her crime, Frum spent 34 years in prison. She was released on August 14th of 2009,
Well,
2 years and 7 months after Ford's death.
She is actually described as Manson's the truest believer of Manson's philosophy.
The truest believer.
And I mean, I think that kind of proves it when we get into that. I mean, she was willing to try to kill the sitting president of the United States.
It's not known whether or not Manson had any direct influence over this, but it's kind of suspected.
It would have been harder for him at the time, though, because he wouldn't no cell phones and shit.
Yeah, but he had coded ways of communicating, and you'll see his very strange method of communication a little bit later. You can actually, if for some reason you find yourself at the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which I suspect I will never set foot in that building, you can actually look at the M1911 pistol that she used in the assassination attempt. It was given as a gift to the
You
museum.
can probably pull it up.
Yeah, we could do that.
Let's see the fucking pistol.
Gerald R. Ford Museum. I'll just go ahead. Let me just pull that up real quick.
Cool.
If I remember, that's a pretty big fucking gun. If I have that correct.
Let's take a look.
I mean, as far as the pistols go.
See if we can find an image of this pistol in its display case. Yeah, here it is. It is a pretty big fucking gun.
Yeah, it's not. They ain't no fucking like 22. This is
Here, I'll show you. Oh shit! Get out of here, stupid fucking piece of garbage. All right, so here is the gun. I'm not familiar with this gun. It's not like something I've ever heard of, but here it is.
I'm pretty sure it was like a standard military issue pistol before they replaced it.
I don't know how big of a piece of shit it is.
Yeah, the 1911. I think that was like way back in the day.
The fact that it failed to fire, I don't know if that was common or if that was just incredible luck on the part of the president.
Yeah.
I don't, or maybe that's just a shittily manufactured fucking gun. I don't know. I know that I'll probably never go to the Gerald R. Ford Museum because who conceivably could give a shit? But
I don't.
It is kind of fascinating. It might,
is.
if I do stop in, it'll be probably to take a look at that fucking gun.
Maybe you'll be in Grand Rapids, Michigan one day, TJ. You'll just have to see it.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yeah, motherfucker. All right. So, Charles Manson, because his death sentence was commuted to a life sentence, he was actually, by law, eligible for parole. Now, for a while there, Charles Manson actually did attend his parole hearings. You know, today there's some weird laws and shit that kind of prevent criminals from, I don't know if it's laws or it's just new policies. Like, you don't see interviews with prisoners as much anymore of these major crimes. Like, even though a lot of these guys who've done these mass shootings and stuff are still alive, we don't see, like, you know, tonight Brian Williams is talking to such and such, or, you know, like
like Dylan Roof or whatever.
Yeah, you know, we don't see those interviews with Dylan Roof or any of these people anymore. I don't know what the reason for that is. I think maybe they don't want it to inspire other would-be killers.
It's probably just not to confer upon them the celebrity and shit, to not draw more attention to their deeds.
I kind of miss that because I feel like we as a society do need insight into these people, but that's an argument for another time. Let's take a look at some of Charles Manson's greatest parole hearing moments, because there are many. Go, play it. Play it.
Judge
there you
Older.
go.
He was Charles Manson.
By the way, let me just read the description of this real briefly. These are the highlights of from some of Manson's parole hearings in the 80s and 90s. Manson has had 12 hearings since his incarceration in 1971, in which his original sentence was a death penalty, but in 1972, the California Supreme Court commuted his sentence to life in prison on account of abolishing capital punishment. In 2007, Manson refused to attend his hearing, describing himself as a prisoner of the political system. So it was in 2007 he stopped going to these. Let's take a little look now. Classic Charles Manson.
Wrong Manson.
Parole moments.
In San Diego, I ride a motorcycle. I ride a motorcycle in L.A. A bunch of straight Satans call themselves devils, say they're get down, say they got the money over on another edge of town. They got the Beach Boys tied up in their contracts. You can't get into the real estate because Pasadena is a submarine that's run by Jerry Hoover, who's over in the chapel, who comes from Colombia with the drug cartel, saying he got money with 2 guns and he taking that pussy. I blew him to hell. It's that simple. Ring the bell. Ding along, sing along. Mitch Miller.
Is this making complete sense to everybody else, or is it just me?
Yeah, dude. I was just about to say, like, wow. With an erudite fucking speech like that, how was he denied
I mean, when
parole?
he said that the city of Los Angeles was a submarine, I was sold.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Let this man free.
The axiomatic way of speaking of Charles Manson that just elucidates the fucking truth all at once, and just everything becomes clear and concise and succinct. I mean, yeah.
I don't know why they didn't let this guy go.
I'd have set him free.
Free this man immediately.
Honestly, I'd have set his ass free right then and there. I'd have been like, you know what? Approved. It would have been like the fucking moment in Shawshank Redemption.
Yep. And you know what, Mr. Manson? We're also going to immediately check into that chapel and those Colombian drug cartels with the 2 guns that are taking pussy, sir.
Yes.
We're on that case immediately.
Let's take a little listen.
Movies. I'm Bing Crosby, hard as a hobo, loves the Roman fields of clover. I'm Gene Autry. I'm all those guys. I'm another children. I'm down a wave or 2 up underneath you. What you're doing, you're over flying with the eagles and the fathers of great lands, but I'm king on other wings and baddest motherfucker that ever did live. I've done the same thing all my life, 24 hours a day, so I'm about 15.
That was very... Yeah.
He's the baddest motherfucker ever did live.
In other words, I know more about law than anybody in the world. I know more about courts and procedures and criminology and penology and procedure.
Penology, dude.
Sharp dealing doubles off the bench in Monte Carlo. I know more about the economy, more about money, more about the government than any 10 presidents you got. You know, in other words, I've said in solitary
Why do we not have
confinement,
this dude lead our country?
Everything you got.
Dude, not only should he have been released, But
Should
with
have been
this,
the president.
with this sort of knowledge, fuck president. He should have
God
been
Emperor, dude.
dictator for life. I think we should have let him record his album and do his plan. I think the world would be a better place today if Charles Manson had his race war. We could have cleansed the fucking problematic people from the earth.
We never would have been born, TJ.
And you know what? It's a small price to pay. Small price to pay.
Guys do. And the truth is, you're all lying to yourselves. I'll do whatever I feel is necessary to do whatever I feel is necessary because I believe in George.
I like that sentence, dude.
Yep. I'll do whatever I feel is necessary to do whatever I feel is necessary.
Okay. Well, he's going to do whatever is necessary
Washington.
then.
I believe in the Constitution of George Washington. I believe in the United States government. I don't believe in Abraham Lincoln. I never did.
I don't think George
don't like
Washington
him at
had
all.
anything to do with that. But
That's the truth.
So
thank you.
he believes in... I like that.
They're like, okay, thank you.
So he believes in the Constitution of George Washington, but not Abraham Lincoln.
I don't believe in that Lincoln shit.
Lincoln fucking didn't do it right, dude. Piece of fucking shit. But
Lincoln
George,
freed the slaves. Bad.
But fucking George... Well,
Did you say butt fucking George Washington?
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
It's clear that you do have a history of
Not
drug
intentionally, though.
usage. I think there's some indication that you use LSD. No drug usage?
I've smoked a little grass and I've taken a little acid, but drugs, no.
Okay.
We don't call them drugs. I mean, you guys call them drugs.
Smoke a little...
I smoke a little grass, I take a little acid, but no drugs.
I kind of agree with him on that.
You know, you guys call them drugs. I don't call them drugs. That's your word.
Charlie's got a point. Let's be honest.
He's right about that, dude. Smoke some fucking grass. Ain't no
Smoke
big deal.
some
Did you
grass.
ever get to know Charlie Manson? Well, it depends on which one. I have to be a different Charlie Manson for each procedure that I'm in. If I'm under a doctor that gives me medication, I have to be a nice person there to do whatever game he's playing. There's a mirror on the wall. And I've been reflecting this thing for 40 years. You know? What the real Charles Manson was is what his mother taught him. And I forgot that quite a long time ago.
Charles Manson, one thing I've noticed, is obsessed with mirrors, like reflections of himself. Like he's always like looking to things to see himself back, and like it's kind of an interesting parallel. I heard him talk about it over and over again. Like his mother is someone he brings up a lot. Mirrors and reflections. He seems to have a fixation on those things. It's kind of an interesting thing. I just noticed that he always comes back to his mother, and I guess it's like him looking at himself. You know what I mean? And try because he always talks about himself in this kind of third person thing.
Sigmund Scotty again, everybody.
Okay, well,
You understood his mind, didn't you, Scotty?
I'm not saying I understood his mind. I'm just
Did
saying,
you sit down for a comprehensive interview with this man, Scotty?
So you're saying you merely want a surface level analysis, TJ?
You know, I want you to stick to a
Wiki-
fucking dry
the Wikipedia-
recitation of the facts.
The
This is
Wikipedia
Wikipedia, the show.
The Wikipedia show. I'm sorry.
You know what I think he was motivated by?
What?
Chocolate mousse, dude. This is every bit as valid as your gibberish.
Chocolate mousse?
Chocolate fucking mousse.
Well, I'm just basing on what he said.
He just sat there eating big old tubs of chocolate mousse, went crazy.
Like
That's my crackpot fucking theory, Scotty.
Why are you so angry, TJ?
I'd kill some people for some
maybe,
chocolate
maybe
mousse.
you're the next fucking.
That does
Charles
sound
Manson.
pretty good.
I'd kill Sharon Tate.
Manson the mystic.
Well,
he already got
you
to her.
have certain powers of darkness that you invoke from the mind,
Invoke
like
the
a
power
mirror
of
upon the
darkness.
wall. And the power of life and death, or the power to hurt, can be dispensated to the mind throughout the world of darkness.
Oh.
Well, you see, I live in the underworld.
Well, that's all clear now.
I do a lot of things underworld that you guys don't see. I made about 75 albums in Vacaville.
Wow.
And I bootlegged about 3
Didn't
times
make that
more
one that
music
led to the
than
race war,
Beatles
unfortunately.
Music?
Yeah. I had the surfboard, the Beach Boys, but I didn't sell it. Because every time I would go to the music, they'd want to change the music. So rather than change the music, I went into the subculture with it. I got an old nuclear submarine that I had from the Navy when I was Section 8 in Leavenworth, Kansas, with Brother Dynamite and the Mafia coming off of Franklin.
Brother Dynamite. Wow, he knew Brother Dynamite from the Mafia?
Dude, I had no idea. Why didn't we cover his...
Did his tendrils extend to fucking everywhere, dude?
I
I mean, why didn't we talk about his fucking intimate knowledge of Brother Dynamite, dude? I just don't understand.
Well, I don't think parole would be a reasonable perspective. I think I wouldn't take a parole anyway, not really. I'm thinking, you know, I'm here, we're going through the changes of it, but I would like to go back to court. I'd like to get my chance, my day at court. We're based and founded on that. Sooner or later, even if I die tonight, you're still going to have to give me a trial. Sooner or later, that court is going to click. And when that big chair clicks,
Already had a trial.
right, and I'm going to get...
I mean, honestly,
They have to give me another trial.
honestly, I mean, there's things you could say about his trial that I think were unfair. I think he did it, and he's absolutely guilty and all that. But
He is.
there's elements of that.
I mean,
trial
certainly
that are
the
just
media
bullshit.
influence.
Yeah, the huge media influence on the trial, the fact that the president is going on the TV saying he's guilty.
Yeah.
You know, just he was. I mean, like obviously there was evidence against him and stuff, but you know. There was some crooked shit, but I don't think there's any reason to give him a retrial. It seemed like it was fair enough, and the evidence against him is strong enough that you know.
Well, also the public outcry would be too great. I mean, everyone wanted him to be in prison. Everyone wanted him to die. I mean, initially they wanted him to die, and then it was like, well, you can't die. Well, just stay in jail the rest of your life. That's good enough. You can just rot there. And he was actually fine with it, like he said. I mean, he just said it right there, and he said it over and over again. Like, I don't want to get out. Just leave me here. What are your parole plans? Nothing. I want to go to court. You know. So this guy fucking either he wanted to be exonerated and say, "Here you go."
I don't think he had any ambition to do anything but stay in prison.
Yeah, he was a lifelong prisoner. That was it.
The turnaround comes to push comes to shove. Shove comes to looking around and see where you're up above or down below, where you're at and how it turns. Something that says it's good, say it's bad, that's good. Say what it is, that's cool. So when you
What it is.
Fool come through the door, you don't know what he's doing about what. He just come and fell out of the water like a fish on the floor. And he don't know what he's doing. He got no idea where he's at, and he's coming in other people's lives talking about words he don't even know nothing about. Then he comes into my world, my life, and tells me, some old punk-ass motherfucker shit that's going to get me killed if I don't put up some force fields in his mind and get his ding-dong ass off of me. They feel secure as long as they got me locked up in a cell.
Put up that fucking force field,
like,
dude.
Yeah, they feel like they got the man right there in the box where they can go back and say what's what to who and said where. Because you representing who.
He's got kind of a lyrical quality when he goes on these rants.
I was just thinking, like, man, it's too bad, like, hip-hop wasn't more of a thing. Like, he might have fucking made it as a rapper or something.
Do you think that this is part of an act, though, or do you think that this is
there's a tremendous amount of theatrics going on.
I mean,
here.
I mean, you really get the sense that, I mean, some of this obviously is genuine, but a lot of it is just, I have an audience, so now I'm going to fucking go and play this character that these people want to see.
I think he just liked fucking with them, honestly. I think he knew that they were never going to let him out, and he was just like, you know, like every time I show up, I'm just going to do some different crazy shit. It was probably just one of the more amusing things he had to look forward to in his life.
Look at you today, 20 years later,
I love
and
this
they
one.
still have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
Nobody.
I love that shit, dude.
I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight racer if you get too close to me.
I want to hear Tom Waits sing that as a fucking song lyric.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like I said, that lyrical quality of his shit, dude.
That's why, I mean,
he thought in weird poetry.
That's why I love some of his songs, because the lyrics are so evocative of him. I think it's sad that he couldn't have gotten, it's like, you know, he couldn't have gotten that record deal. Maybe he would have fucking made some kick-ass music and not been...
He wasn't able to really use that artistic outlet in his life. Instead, he just turned to these negative sort of means of getting attention or, you know, monetary success.
I mean, like, one of the things we've definitely learned during this Cult Leader Week is there's a real thin line between an artist and a...
Total fucking whack job.
Yeah, basically. And, you know, it's just kind of a shame to me, because I really feel like when I hear his music, even though it's, like, obviously not the most produced or polished stuff in the world, just, like, the lyrics he writes and his way of viewing the world is so fucking interesting. I just wish that that he could have developed that instead of wasting his life by just, murdering people and doing these stupid little pageants for the fucking parole board every fucking few years.
See, I don't really feel a lot of remorse for that personally, because I don't think that's who Charlie Manson was. It may have been who he wanted to be, but who he was what he is. You know what I mean? To use a Charlie Mansonism here towards the end of this, who he was is what he is, and there's no way that's going to be a fucking rock star. He's not going to be able to keep it together. You have to be able to play by the rules on some level to exist and have a career like that, and Charlie didn't know how to do that.
Speaking of that,
restless misery.
Let's take a little look at the letter that Charles Manson sent to Marilyn Manson, because at some point, obviously Marilyn Manson took part, half of his name from Charles Manson. It was some combination of Marilyn Monroe and Charles Manson there. So I'd like to share with you guys this fucking letter. Let's just take a little visual look at it, because it's pretty weird. This is an actual sample of Chuck's handwriting here. And I'll just go ahead and put that up on the screen. Now. On, bitch. There we go.
Wow.
So there's
a jumbled mess.
An open letter to Marilyn Manson from Charles Manson. Damn it. For some reason, I can't enlarge one thing without the other here. Since I doubt you can actually read that, I will go ahead and read it to you. To Marilyn Manson, it's taken me a long time to get there from where I could touch M. Manson. Now I got a card to play. You may look into my non-profit ATWA, ATWA. I don't know what that stands for.
That was like his group thing of like air, earth, or something.
Or air, trees, water.
Yeah.
Or something. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
And give Manson what you think he's got coming for air, trees, water, and you, or I will pay. Manson, what you think Manson got coming. The music has make Manson into a Braxis devil. And I'm sure you would want some of what I got from what I got. It's a far-out balance, beyond good and bad, right, wrong. What you don't do is what I will do. What you did, a sing-along, and let it roll. And said how you saved me a lot of steps. I don't need. It's not a need or a want. Cooped coop. Ghost dancers slay together. And you're just in my grave, sunstroker, corona, coronas, coronae. You seen me from under with it all standing on me. That's 2 dump trucks doing the same as CMF 000007.
Wow.
Charles Manson.
Just as intelligible as his parole hearing speeches.
Yep. I've heard that this is like some sort of coded language, and I've actually read people claim that they could actually translate this letter into something that makes sense, but I was not able to find that again. So instead, we're just going to be left with the mystery.
Plus, it's kind of speculation if they can really, translate the letter or not.
Yeah, I mean,
where's the proof that
people said? I mean, like they said it was some kind of old like criminal slang language from like the 40s and 50s and shit.
I mean, maybe that's possible. I'm not really an expert on that, but
here, by the way, is something else Chuck got up to in his later life.
It's a star.
This here is his girly friend right there. Towards the end of his days, he managed to start banging this 29-year-old girl. I don't know if he actually banged her or not. They seemed like they actually were able to get in the same room.
They have to be married to get conjugal visits. Were they married?
Well, I mean, here they are in the same spot. They never got married.
I mean, she can get visitation. Like,
right.
As a girlfriend, you can get visitation rights and shit. He has to put you on the list, but he didn't get to fuck her unless... I mean, I guess sometimes you get a hand job in the visitation room or something.
Yeah, maybe he at least got a hand job. I don't know. He was a little old at this point. So I thought I'd just read a little bit about this bitch. Blah, 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 blah. What's her fucking name? Okay, she was known as Star. Okay. I can't find her real fucking name here. I guess her name was Afton Burton. No wonder she went by Star. Someone named her Afton.
Afton.
Afton, 29, who changed her name to Star a decade ago, crossed the country at the age of 18, leaving her home on the Mississippi River and moving to Corcoran? I don't know where that is.
Corcoran. There's a big state prison there where Manson was at.
She struck up a relationship with Manson when she started writing to him after a friend chose him as a subject of a school project. It is almost 3 years since father of four, Phil, received the telephone call from his eldest child announcing, "Daddy, I'm gonna marry Charlie." What a fucking announcement. Since then, a marriage license has been issued but expired in February of 2015 amid lurid reports that Afton had only wanted to marry Manson so she could take possession of his corpse on his death and use it for profit, charging people a fee to view it. Step right up,
View Charlie Manson's desiccated corpse.
Both her mother, Melissa, 50, and her father strongly refuted the claims, and now Phil gives a rather more prosaic cause for the end of the relationship and the couple's failure to wed. He explained there were several complications that arose regarding the scheduling of the marriage. There was a lot of time he was unavailable because he was in solitary confinement. What a fucking badass right to the very end. Fucking 70-something years old, almost dead, and still causing enough of a ruckus to be in fucking solitary.
I mean, he was probably just spitting on guards and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll get you thrown in the hole.
The rumors are that I just like that they didn't break his fucking spirit. The rumors are that the prison authorities, were trying to make it difficult for them. So basically, they were just fucking with him having this marriage at this point. There's no visitation, no phone calls, no nothing when you're in solitary. Under such pressures, the relationship was, he said, impossible to sustain.
I mean, something you said earlier kind of made me think. You said they didn't break his spirit. I guess that's true, but they made his spirit. He was like the system was his mother and father.
True.
So they were responsible for what they had on their hands with Charlie Manson. Like it wasn't even about them breaking his spirit. Maybe that would work for somebody that, fell to crime after having a somewhat normal upbringing. But somebody like him that grew up in the system,
that's all I knew.
They raised him.
I like this guy, Phil, this parent of Star here. I want to read his attitude towards all this. It's kind of interesting. Today, Phil is pragmatic about his daughter's decade-long relationship and its recent demise. Speaking from his home in Alton, Illinois, a 30-minute drive from Afton's childhood home in Bunker Hill, he said, "She's doing really well. I don't know if she's with somebody else. That's something you'd have to ask her, but I just want my daughter to be happy. I support her no matter what her choices are. I love her."
Wow.
That's a pretty supportive fucking dad right there.
Yeah, dude, what dad has to deal with somebody marrying Charles Manson? You know what I mean?
So you want to marry Charles Manson, who's like 50 years older. Oh, okay.
So you want to marry a 70-year-old man that orchestrated a bunch of brutal murders back in the 60s and is infamously crazy and one of the most iconic evil men in history? Okay, sure. Why not? Whatever makes you happy,
Whatever makes you happy, baby.
Do you want to marry Adolf Hitler?
So here's one of the last known photos of our buddy right here.
Looking good.
I mean, man, dude, he just he went through this transition as he got older and just got more and more evil looking.
Yeah, he did. He really fucking did.
He looks like an evil wizard here, dude.
He really does.
I put a spell on you.
I mean, he looks like a demonic wizard. He has a fucking marking on his right in the fucking crack. What do you call that? Not his forehead. What is there?
His brow line? I don't know.
Like his brow. There's like this fucking faded line. You can imagine like glowing green as some incantation. And he's gonna cast a fucking spell.
Look at those eyebrows too, man.
Dude, he looks like an evil fucking wizard, dude.
I love those bushy ass eyebrows.
Man, I hope I get those when I get old.
I mean, I got pretty bushy eyebrows now. Not quite that bad though, but I think I probably, if I live to be as old as he is there, I think I will have bushy ass eyebrows like that.
Hope he'll also look like an evil wizard.
It was the very first day of 2017 when Manson was suffering from gastrointestinal bleeding at California State Prison in Corcoran. He was rushed to Mercy Hospital in downtown Bakersfield. There was a source told the Los Angeles Times that Manson was seriously ill, and TMZ reported that Manson's doctors considered him too weak for surgery. He was returned to prison by January 6th. His treatments not being disclosed, obviously because of confidentiality laws about medical treatments and stuff like that.
Right.
He lived all the way up until November 15th, 2017. A source not authorized to speak on behalf of the Corrections Department confirmed that he returned to the hospital, where he died of cardiac arrest resulting from respiratory failure and colon cancer. Actually, that was 4 days later on November 19th, which is, I think, actually the birthday of a few people I know. 3 people have. This is kind of interesting. There was actually sort of a battle over who gets the corpse and who gets the whatever meager properties he had.
Well, he had some stuff that probably would have been worth money.
Oh, well, I mean, as infamous as he is, everything he owned is probably worth money.
One of the things we didn't talk about, just to interject real quick, he used to make weird art in prison, too. I remember I couldn't find... I tried to pull something about it. I couldn't find it, but I remember seeing a picture of... he would make this art out of hair.
Weird.
In the prison, where he would collect his own hair and hair that he found around, and we'd make all these insects out of it using rubber bands.
I think just recently, too, his grandson or something he won custody of his body.
Well, yeah, I'm actually about to talk about that.
Okay.
There's 3 people. 3 people actually tried to claim his estate and his body. One was Manson's grandson, Jason Freeman, stated his intent to take possession of Manson's remains and personal effects. Michael Channels, who was a pen pal of Manson, and I guess had a will that was dated from February 14th of 2002, where Manson said he left his entire estate plus his body to Channels. And then another friend of Manson's, Ben Gurecki, has a different will dated from January 2017 that gives him the estate.
Of course.
So Manson was just, in typical criminal fashion, selling the same thing to multiple people.
Yep.
I don't know if he was actually selling it, but, whatever. He was working his influence. In 2012, CNN News ran a DNA match to see if Freeman and Roberts were related to each other, found out they weren't. On March 12th, 2018, the Kern County Superior Court in California decided in favor of Freeman in regard to the body of Manson, which... Freeman had previously said he would have cremated, so at least he's not going to be a fucking carnival attraction. Step right up, step right up.
I don't think that you could legally do that, can you? It's a terrible plan. You can't like charge people money to look at a corpse, can you?
I'm pretty sure you could.
It was often speculated that wasn't even true, and also, I mean, yeah, the legality of it is probably another issue. I mean, and even if you could do it, I mean, how long would it take for someone to steal that corpse, dude?
I have no idea. But
not very long.
I don't know. I don't know what actually ended up happening with the body. I don't know if it was cremated. I don't know if it was buried. I don't know what.
Well, he just recently won.
Yeah, so I don't know what. I mean, I'm assuming the body is probably in a grave somewhere. I don't know what the fuck they did with his body in the interim. Just kept him in a freezer somewhere, I guess. Whatever they did with him, his, I guess, grandson, Jason Freeman, took possession. Guess that was the closest kin they could find to him. And probably probably those 2 guys who made claims of having wills probably canceled each other out there, I'm assuming, because...
Yeah, you got 2 wills from 2 different times.
I think one of them claims he was adopted by Charles Manson, but he was adopted by somebody else, so his claim was found to be invalid, and I forget the reason of the other one, but both their claims were found to be invalid for different reasons, and his grandson had the most legitimate claim.
It's weird since Manson knows more about law than the entire court system.
That's true.
Well, but he's dead now, so... Well, a big thing about that, too, that it was rumored that he was upset about the being on display was not that he was going to be on display, is that he thought he was immortal, or claimed to be immortal.
Yeah, he didn't want to be on display because
that he'd be dead.
He was insulted that they thought he was actually going to die. Well, but he did.
He did, of course. Just recently, too.
But he actually did. Long interesting, strange life. What do you take away from it?
For me personally, like, and this may be kind of colored by the fact that I spent way more time reading about early Charlie, but I think it's just kind of an indictment of having children that you don't care about enough to take care of. That seems to be what created Charlie Manson, was not having a sense of stability at home ever, not having a strong figure of any gender to show him the way. In fact, a lot of the things he did, seemed to be kind of emulating what his mother and family members were doing when he was young, robbing and grifting and conning and all of that shit. So, I think that, and once again, to kind of go back to what I said too about, him being an example of somebody that's just raised in institutions and what that does to a person, how it separates their ability to tell right from wrong, how it allows them to create this whole fantasy world to fill in the gaps of not having a real life because they've spent so much of their life incarcerated. I'm glad we ended our little cult block this time with Charles Manson because, I think that now that we've done all of these other cultists, seeing all the parallels between them and the ways that they conducted themselves, the things that they said about themselves, I think is probably the most interesting thing about taking a closer look at all of these at once for me.
I think the two most striking similarities I saw between these guys, and we kind of talked about it in this episode, is just the tendency to want to express themselves through art or music in particular, it seems, and also just the obsession with themselves as a Christ-like figure. It's kind of similar to being a rock star in a way, too, is the idea of, I'm almost this messianic, God-like presence, and I deserve to have the spotlight shined on me, and I deserve the adulation of the crowds. And, I think America, to some extent, venerates that mentality. We have a celebrity culture. There's always, it's like, isn't Rihanna great? Isn't Beyonce great? Isn't this person great? And this person great? And look at them. Look at how glorious. Look at how splendid. And this is just, I think, sometimes these cult leaders kind of strike me as being the dark side of that.
The ones that didn't make it.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if some of these other rock stars hadn't made it. Would they have sought out their fulfillment in other ways? Would they have been more prone than your average person to turn to criminality?
Well, that's why. That's why what I was talking about when I was saying that I wonder what it would be like in a world. It's almost like what if Hitler were accepted in art school kind of.
You're getting almost like a multiverse thing. Like, what if this had happened? What if he had actually been a successful musician? He talked a lot about mirrors, and I think like you're talking about that's the dark side of celebrity, is the people that want fame so badly then don't get it. And then how do they respond to that?
Well, I think
plenty of people accept that, right? They say, "Hey, I'm not going to be famous," and clearly he wanted to be famous. So if he couldn't be famous for something that he wanted, which is music, he was going to be famous.
Well, he got famous anyway.
He was going to be famous for something else. And what I took away from this was just at every turn in his life, someone failed him. And ultimately, then he failed the people around him because there was never a structure that built him up as a person.
Yeah.
His mother failed him. Society failed him. The people around him failed him. And then in turn, he failed all of them because he sought out these vulnerable people, because obviously this guy was very vulnerable.
Yeah. I think that, in order to be a performer and shit like that, you have to have a touch of madness. And maybe some of these guys that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks had a little touch too much to be able to carry it through. You know what I mean? Just a little bit more than they needed to be artistic personalities that kind of spilled over into criminality and stuff. It's an interesting parallel, and certainly I'm sure there have been psychological studies done on creative people that have, revealed things that would probably inform this for us. But
also the power of control. You go to a concert, people usually don't sit there and go, "Okay, here's a concert going on. This is great." They're engaged with the performer.
Yeah.
And there's the power of that. And to people like Charles Manson and Jim Jones and Marshall Applewhite, there's always that appeal. It's that I can have control over people's lives. I can tell them what to do. I can have them kill for me. I can have them, totally isolate themselves from the rest of the world, but so they can listen to what I have to say.
There's a malevolence to Charles Manson that even someone as evil as Jim Jones, who obviously was responsible for far more people's deaths, you don't really see that. I mean, you definitely feel the evil, for lack of a better word, coming off him. But Charles Manson just, I mean, like, it's like you said, I mean, every picture you see of him throughout his life, he just looks progressively more and more like what you imagine a villain to be. And I think he exudes that evil. Really, like, but he also has...
but he adopted that as a persona.
He also has that vulnerability, though, like I saw in Marshall Applewhite. I think it's why I felt like he was the perfect, like, bow for our cult series, because I see in him, like, just the utmost intensity of every facet of what leads to this type of personality.
Yeah, he definitely does seem to have a little handful of it all.
Like, he has the wickedness of
the narcissism.
Yeah, the narcissism in Spade. He has the evil of Jim Jones. He has the vulnerability of Marshall Applewhite.
The need to control.
He has the sexual magnetism of David Koresh. Probably even more so. I mean, like, in my opinion, he has all of those more than those guys.
He's kind of the prototype of your modern cultist.
So,
really.
Yeah, I think he's, I mean, a very compelling figure. There's probably a lot more we could say about him, but this has already been going on for about 2 hours now, so we're going to call it a quits.
Cool.
I think we might return to this cult and sort of true crime thing a little bit in the future. But I think you could probably expect a change of pace.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For the next couple weeks.
What that change of pace is, you'll have to wait and see.
We never let you know in advance. We never let you know.
Stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat
and
place.
Because it is patrons watching this, I do want to say to our patrons that we will be doing the episode, the special patron-exclusive episode on Prohibition next month. That's not going to be part of the regularly scheduled episode. It's going to be an extra. And later this month, we will be doing your People's Choice episode. I haven't looked to see what exactly you guys voted on, but there's a thread on the Patreon, a few threads back, if you want to go vote. I had a lot of people put suggestions down. If you like a suggestion that someone made, give it a thumbs up. Let us know what episode you want to see. There's still time to vote.
Yeah, but we will be announcing that on Patreon very soon.
So look forward to that.
You won't know that one in advance, but that's because it's your guys' choice.
Because you guys chose it.
So you chose it.
And you know the Prohibition one because that was a perk level for enough.
So those are the two. You're definitely getting those two, but that's next month. And this month is going to be the People's Choice episode.
The People's Choice episode. That should be done
the
very
People's
shortly.
Episode.
Yep. Thank you all for being patrons.
Yeah. Once again, we just want to thank all of you for being patrons. Please let us know if you like this episode. We're streaming on YouTube right now. The YouTube link is going to go dead.
Bye-bye.
We're going to upload this to Vimeo and give you guys a link to that. We're working on some stuff behind the scenes to get a more cogent archive going. We're kind of just figuring out what we're going to do. Since there's only 2 patron-exclusive episodes right now, it's not that big of a deal, but in the future, whatever. You know, you guys expect announcements.
There is going to be an archive, though. It is coming soon.
So just want to let you guys know what to expect. We want to thank you guys once again for being patrons. And, hey, when we upload the preview of this on the YouTube channel, let the people know that it's worth watching if you feel that way. Let the people know. I saw that we had most of you guys watching all night. It seemed like the comments were all super positive, so I think you guys enjoyed what we did here. Let people know that this show is worth it, that it's worth fucking contributing to. It's worth becoming a patron.
Also let them know that TJ's a stupid faggot.
And let them know. Well, they already know I'm a stupid faggot. Let's be honest.
That what shoved a banana up his butt.
All right, so I'm going to let Scotty have the final word because I'm generous.
Oh, you're generous. Thank you, TJ. I just want to say that, you know what?
Deep Perfecto Friday.